Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple.
A crucial encounter in the race for the European places took centre stage in the Premier League when Antonio Conte's Spurs visited Ralf Rangnick's United. In a close encounter, in the end it was United who came away winners, 3-2 thanks to a Cristiano Ronaldo hat-trick, after Kane and a Maguire own goal had put Spurs level. The XG did show that Spurs technically created more, although the penalty accounts for 0.75 of their XG, which, if taken away, makes things more even. The XG time map backs this up, showing that the penalty accounts for most of Spurs' XG. But what tactics were on display? Let's take a look. Just before then, my favorite fantasy football app is back and better than ever with a massive giveaway. For the next 3 match days in the Premier League, just by selecting a team on Spitch, if you're ranked in the top 10, you can win massive prizes like AirPods Pro, an Apple Watch 7, a holiday package, or even cash prizes up to €3,000. All you have to do is download Spitch through the link below for free and make a fantasy football team. The beauty of Spitch is that prizes are given on a week-by-week basis, so if you enter today, you have just as much chance of winning. And the point scoring in Spitch is great, as it's not just about goals and assists. Instead, passes, blocks, and interceptions count, so players in all positions are valuable. So for this week, my team looks like this. Make sure to download Spitch and join my Spitch community through the link below so that we can compete in the same league. Spitch is currently UK and Ireland only and 18 years old and up. We'll begin with United in possession. Spurs did press high at times, but not always, and could instead defend with a mid to low block in a 5-4-1, with both Son and Kulusevski fairly deep. And when building up, United had a few alternatives. When under more pressure, Matic could drop into the left centre-back position to give them an extra man in the build-up and more outlets, whilst also allowing Tejas to push much higher up on the left and Sancho or Rashford to drift infield. At the same time, if Matic was playing a more traditional pivot role, it would be Diogo Dalot who would be the third centre-back, and at times, Højbjerg would be proactive in looking to cut off Matic. And here we saw something different from Rangnick. Rather than operating as a traditional midfield 3 or a 4-2-3-1, Pogba, and more surprisingly Fred, tended to push extremely high in the half spaces. It should be noted having so much support around him meant that Ronaldo could now drift around the pitch as they would fill in for him in the centre forward role, which was both good and bad. But the main consideration is that it gave Spurs' midfield problems. If they pressed early, these men between the lines had more space, and if United were able to find them, they could combine. But if Spurs' midfield tried to remain deeper to compress the space, United used their defenders well. As Kane couldn't cover the lateral space alone, the centre-backs could drive wider forward easily, and eventually the Spurs midfield would have to confront them, creating more space between the lines and some passing angles. This would then allow United to find the men between the lines, as we can see in the first goal. Spurs are compact in a 5-4-1, and we see that Fred and Pogba are high right alongside Ronaldo, but there's not really an angle to find them. Kane cannot come all the way across to cover, so Varane has space to drive forward. Now Højbjerg has to confront Varane, and Fred is found, and Spurs' second midfielder Betancourt has to come across to cover, meaning that when Fred finds Ronaldo, he has space to receive. Ronaldo then produces an outstanding finish. Another idea in the build-up for Rangnick, when United felt confident with just the 2 centre-backs against Kane, was to have Dalot invert into this region, alongside Matic, allowing them to greatly outnumber Spurs in the midfield. However, with many men around him, Ronaldo often dropped deeper, or would occupy similar spaces to Dalot, which could be quite ineffective. This wasn't helped by the fact that Sancho and Rashford were quite happy wide when playing down the right, so if Dalot then looked to move into that region, again it was 2 men in a similar position. But let's look at some of Spurs' in-possession ideas, as well as the United defense. When Spurs had a goal kick, United used a higher block, although not necessarily with high intensity pressing. By using a back three rather than overloading one side of the pitch in the build-up, Spurs knew there were 3 versus 2 down in the midfield. So instead, Dyer would often push higher up into the pivot position to provide a secondary option to play through the press. But when Spurs were in possession in open play, there was more of a midfield battle. With their midfield numerical advantage, Matic could stay deep, whilst Fred and Pogba confidently covered both pivots, making central play quite difficult. However, both Son and Kulusevski were happy to drop deep to form a midfield three of their own, and therefore looked to receive a penetrative pass the wrong side of Matic, to then advance higher up the pitch. So one way United could look to counter this was through a more effective lateral press. As if Ronaldo directed Spurs' build-up play one side, Pogba could stay on the ball side pivot, whilst the far side winger could then come narrow so that both of Spurs' pivots were covered, whilst Fred could remain deeper to assist Matic with any dropping men. When defending deeper, United had a more variable defensive shape. It could be a 4-4-1-1 or a 4-2-3-1 with Pogba shifting laterally to cover the ball side pivot. It could also be a 4-3-2-1, but most commonly it was a 4-2-2-2 with narrow wingers that Spurs could take advantage of, particularly down the left. With Sancho or Rashford narrow, the easy outlet was to Reguilon. However, Davis, a natural left back, tended to push high, so that he and Reguilon would now have a 2 versus 1 against Dalot, with Son or Kane lurking in the half space. Spurs could then look to make connections down the left to create danger. This even contributed to a disallowed goal. United could commit more numbers across to compensate for this left side overload. However, with Kulusevski occupying Tellers in the half space, Doherty at right wing back often found himself in acres of space. As a result, the switch was consistently on, leading to some promising situations. Overall, it was an exciting match, but at the same time showed why both sides are fighting for their European places rather than anything bigger, as there were some weaknesses on show. Champions League qualification will still be a tough ask for both sides, due to Arsenal's games in hand, but I want to know what you think position 4 to 6 in the Premier League will end up as. For the managerial score, both managers had some solid and well-defined ideas in both attack and defense, but I have it roughly even at a 6 out of 10 each. But what are your ratings? Leave them down below.
And if you enjoyed this video, you may also enjoy the FMS Patreon. On Patreon, you'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as the ability to vote on various polls and so much more. It's a great way to support the channel, and it is now cheaper than ever. All you have to do is head over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple, or press the card in the top right or the end card at the end of this video.
And a special thanks to my patrons including Relu, Edwin and Ref.
But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.